culture of the Akan, the culture of the Akan people of West Africa, dates from before the 13th century, like other long-established cultures. The world over, the Akan have developed a rich conceptual system, complete with metaphysical, moral, and epistemological aspects. Of particular interest is the Akan conceptions of persons, a conception that informs a variety of social institutions, practices, and judgments about personal identity, moral responsibility, and the proper relationship both among individuals and between individuals and community. The overview presents the Akan conception of persons as seen by two major contemporary Akan philosophers, Kwasi Wirdu and Kwame Gaikai. These scholars presents two very different accounts of the concept, particularly with respect to the relationship between social recognition and innate characteristics to personhood. Examining the Akan conception of personhood highlights both the richness of conception as well as the myriad ways in which the resultant conception contrasts with Western conceptions. Among those contrasts are four on which we focus below: of a continuous nature of personhood, the means by which individuals achieve full personhood, and the implications of this conception of personhood for the relationship between individuals and the community. The Akan understanding of responsibility and freedom. The debate between Werkdu and Gaikai provides insights regarding not just the substance of the conception of personhood, but also the way empirical evidence can be used to inform philosophical analysis. In this particular case, the Akan view of personhood, like many other metaphysical and moral conceptions, far-reaching effects on social practices and institutions, using facts about these practices and institutions to reconstruct a conception of personhood, underscores another important general theme in African philosophy: the practical implications of philosophical principles on everyday life. For the Akan, judgments about personhood are not a matter of merely academic interest, but play an important role in shaping and supporting their communal social structure, to the extent that the Akan notion accommodates a common humanity as an innate source of value. It supports moral equality. At the same time, its emphasis on the social basis of personhood helps firmly to embed trust, cooperation, and responsibility to the community and cultural practices. The Akan philosophy of persons thus represents an attempt to resolve in favor of a communalistic way of life that has evolved as a rational adaptation to the exigencies of survival under harsh conditions, and an attempt to express the essence of Akan concept of persons. Kwasi Wirdu refers to former Zambian President Zanda praised the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher as truly a person. The concept of a person, to which Kanda III has a particular significance within the African cultural context, as Kanda explains, personhood is not an automatic quality of the human individual. It is something to be achieved. The higher the achievement, the higher the credit. We're due the view of personhood as a matter of degrees, as exemplified in Kanda's remarkable doctor, is also a defining characteristic of the Akan notion of personhood. the Akan word anapa. Anapa is an ambiguous term, sometimes referring to a member of the biological species, and sometimes referring instead to who has attained a special kind of social status. Word do, according to word do, this dual meaning reflects an important conceptual distinction between a human, a biological entity, and a person, an entity with special moral and metaphysical qualities. Status as a human is not susceptible to degrees, nor is such status conferred on an individual as a reward for her efforts. One is either a human or one is not. There's no such thing as becoming human. In contrast, personhood is something for a human to become different degrees through individual achievement and individual's human status, then is a necessary but not sufficient condition for personhood. Under this interpretation, the payoff for attaining higher degrees of personhood is directly related to rights and privileges that can make a significant difference between success and failure. The more rights and privileges an individual enjoys, the more social capital that individual acquires in the form of access, lineal networks, and resources. They control a person taking its full sense is therefore an individual. Through nature, mature reflection and action has both flourished economically and succeeded in meeting their often weighty responsibilities to her family and community. This distinctive quality of this concept of persons as interpreted by Urdu are brought out when contrasted to the analysis of another leading African philosopher, Kwang Gaikai, who takes his shoes with this graduated conception of persons. Gaikai specifically objects up to the role that social status plays in Urdu's view of personhood, arguing that is inconsistent with the natural or innate moral equality of persons derived from their common humanity. That is, we are human persons before we are anything else, and it is the human person that matters from the moral point of view. Not surprisingly, Gaikai quotes Kant's categorical imperative approvingly when arguing that human persons are as members of their empirical and accidental characteristics by the social or even genetic qualities. According to Gaikai, is our essentially human capacity for reason, not their fortuitous or accidental predicates. Fortuitous or accidental predicates that serve as the basis for moral worth. In this respect, one can't point to such accidental characteristics as height, gender, age, marital, or social class as bias for personhood. What a person acquires are status, habits, and personality or character traits away he person acquires, and thus becomes the subject of acquisition, and being thus prior to acquisition process. He cannot be defined by what he acquires. One is a person because of what he is, not because of what he acquires. Gaikai is quick to note that there are some Akan expressions and judgments about the life and conduct of people that appear to give the impression that personhood is something that is acquired or bestowed upon in a virtue of taking responsibility in the community. For example, Nipa is a moral, judgmental expression used upon the Akan to describe someone who appears in his conduct to be wicked, bad, and ungenerous to others. forever philosophical Akan in fact, a person of high moral standards or conduct would be described approvingly as oi anapa papa literally. She is a real person, human. In contrast, an individual who falls in striving in the Akan community may be judged as a nipahan, which literally means useless person, and abrabrious expression, and abrabrious expression, according to Gaika. However, these locutions should not be literally, but instead merely to reflect status habits and personality or character traits that one acquires over the course of the one's life, not personhood. Urdu Gaikai. And for Gaikai, a person is praya to and independent of such acquisitions to conceive a personhood as to a continuous property capable of degrees is to confuse conventional notions of status, a highly variable quantity, with the notion of personhood, a constant for all human persons. Human person of the relationship between Urdu and a Gaikai analyst, a personhood is brought out more clearly by considering the status of infants of this personhood. Akan linguistic conventions distinguish infants from full persons on the basis of their lack of intellectual and moral maturity. This aspect reflects the continuous character of personhood stressed by Urdu, yet the infant or anapa is also according to baseline level of respect by virtue of her processing of akra. In that respect, an infant is entitled to the respect due to any other human, regardless of age or capability, as interpreted by Urdu. These conventions clearly indicate that certain kinds of achievements, be they moral, intellectual, or social, are for the Akan constitutive or personhood, not merely indicators of such infants, but at the same time, where Redu takes those conventions to indicate the importance of the infant status as a human. It entitles the infant, and for that matter all other humans, to a minimum level of respect. The significance of humanity, he argues, is that it is a necessary albeit not a significant condition for personhood. Rapping infinitely, Akan philosophical, Akan philosophy, spit and rapping to thee.